The outsourcing headaches for Mitt Romney just keep on coming, fast and furious. First, there were attacks on his record as CEO of Bain Capital. But now we're learning that Romney also outsourced the production of U.S. Olympic uniforms when he ran the Salt Lake City Games back in 2002. That's right. America's torchbearers were clad in uniforms made in Burma, a country with an abysmal record on human rights. Outsourcing has been the topic this summer on the campaign trail. But now it's moving to Capitol Hill, where Democrats in Congress are pushing legislation that would close tax loopholes for companies that send American jobs overseas. So let's get the latest now on those efforts from one of the Democrats who's leading the charge. Representative Jan Schakowsky of Illinois joins us live from Washington. Congresswoman, thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor.
You've introduced legislation that's right at the heart of the debate in the presidential election about Mitt Romney and Bain Capital and sending American jobs to China and India and so forth. So tell us, what would your bill do about this particularly and exceptionally important problem?
Well, thank you for asking. It would create Patriot Corporations of America that says for those companies that do 90% of their hiring in the United States of America and most of their research and development, that those companies, those are the ones that would actually get a tax break instead of outsourcing companies getting actual benefits for taking our jobs overseas. They would also get to be ahead of the line in contracting with the federal government. And so this would also ask them to treat their employees well, set a certain level of standards for how they treat their employees. These would be Patriot corporations, a class of corporation that says that part of our job is to help our country, not just to help ourselves, which is what Mitt Romney has done throughout all his career,
Absolutely.
Just looking at how much money he's going to make.
Well, what about the Romney-Bain connection? Because here again, here's a person who's outsourced, so to speak, so incredibly well that he's been able to protect his own wealth as a result of exporting his capital, so to speak, jobs going overseas, the money flying over there as well. Bain Capital has been the bane of our existence here, even if you're for a free market. So tell us the relationship between Bain and Mr. Romney and why that suggests that he would be a poor president of America.
Well, in addition to the actual outsourcing, which we know has occurred, and we've heard these really sad stories of people who actually had to build a stand for the announcement that their jobs were going to be outsourced. How demeaning and humiliating is that, making you actually do the construction work at the site of telling you that you're going to lose your job? And the Washington Post called him a pioneer in outsourcing. But I think the thing that's really going to haunt Mitt Romney is the fact that most Americans understand that they get early retirement, but they don't get retroactive retirement. During a period when Bain was outsourcing jobs and Mitt Romney on the documents was the president and CEO of that company and receiving $100,000, most people think that's a pretty good income and not usually given for doing nothing at all, and not answering the questions. And so people are saying, wait a minute now, it's not just the outsourcing, it's the money in a Swiss bank account, it's the money in Bermuda, it's the retroactive retirement, it's the $100,000 salary, it's not releasing his tax returns. And all that adds up to somebody that maybe the reason he can't tell us what's really going on is because it would be so bad that he'd rather take the heat. And I think that that kind of situation, especially in this kind of economy, embodies what people will reject in a presidential candidate.
Sure. It's more than a Bermuda Triangle. It looks like a Bermuda octangle.
Yes.
Let's switch topics now for a moment, because in addition to this outsourcing debate, there's a big fight brewing over the Bush tax cuts and the fiscal cliff that comes at the end of the year. Let's take a listen.
If we can't get a good deal, a balanced deal that calls on the wealthy to pay their fair share, then I will absolutely continue this debate into 2013.
Senate Democratic leaders said they would actually prefer to see America go off the so-called fiscal cliff this coming January, along with the trauma that would unleash on our economy.
Now, Congresswoman, here's Mitch McConnell saying that the Democrats are trying to push this country over the fiscal cliff. Speaker John Boehner says the Democrats are trying to, quote, tank the U.S. economy. How are Democrats planning to push back on this very, very vicious assault?
You know, I am so proud of the Democrats who have said, no, we're not going to fall for this game. There is nothing more cynical than what the Republicans have said, because they actually did try to push, many of them push us over the fiscal cliff in the chicken game that they played over the debt ceiling last time. And John Boehner has threatened that again. To blame the Democrats after all of our efforts to sit down and talk to them, after all of the compromises and the outreach that has been offered by the Democrats, what they're essentially saying is, only way to do it is our way, and if you don't, then you're the ones that are pushing us over the cliff. You know, and the cliff will exist. If we don't go back to the Clinton-era tax rates for the wealthiest Americans, guess who's going to have to pay for that lost revenue? He's going to push senior citizens over the cliff with their Medicare and Social Security. They want to go ahead with a Ryan-type budget and cut food stamps and all kinds of programs and education. So, you know, their threat is an empty one and a mean-spirited one.
No doubt about that. The best meaning of Cliff Notes I've heard in a long time. Our thanks to Representative Jan Schakowsky for joining us here today.
Thank you, Professor. Appreciate it.